When you hear the first notes of Hans Zimmer's score, you aren't just hearing music. You are hearing the sound of $100 million risk being taken. The rustle of wheat, the quiet before battle. This is not merely an opening scene. It is the first page of a monumental business proposal written in blood, sand, and capital. Gladiator *, released at the dawn of a new millennium in the year 2000, was not just a film. It was an act of breathtaking industrial audacity. A studio, DreamWorks Pictures, betting that modern audiences, wean on irony and sleek futurism, would invest 2.5 hours of their time and emotional currency in a classical tragedy about a Roman general turned slave. The gamble was not just creative. It was financial, technological, and cultural. To resurrect the long-dead genre of the historical epic, to rebuild Rome not with bricks but with polygons and passion, and to ask a global market to care deeply about honor, vengeance, and the fragile idea of a republic. This is a story we decode today. Not just a plot you remember, but the invisible architecture of its making, the engineering of emotion, the flow of capital, and the delicate psychology that transformed a simple revenge tale into a billion-dollar legacy. The film exists at a unique crossroads in Hollywood history. The late 1990s were dominated by different paradigms: independent cinema's resurgence, the rise of CGI spectacles like Jurassic Park and The Matrix star. The Sword and Sandal epic was considered a relic, a costly museum piece whose last successful incarnation was decades prior. To greenlight Gladiator required a specific alchemy of madness and conviction. Director Ridley Scott, a visual architect known for building immersive worlds in Blade Runner and Alien presented a vision that was both visceral and operatic. He wasn't just making a movie. He was proposing a logistical and emotional infrastructure. The production budget, estimated at $103 million, approximate, was a colossal sum, a direct injection of investor faith into a concept with no guaranteed return. This capital wasn't just for stars, though it included Russell Crowe, then a rising but unproven leading man on this scale, and Joaquin, cast in a career-defining role of pathetic villainy. The money was earmarked for a different kind of star, the resurrection of an entire empire. It was allocated for armies of extras, for the construction of massive practical sets in Malta and England, for the pioneering digital artists who would build the Colosseum's roaring upper tiers in computers. This budget represents a clear allocation of risk across multiple vectors: the risk of genre fatigue, the risk of a leading man's bankability, and the frontier risk of blending old-world craftsmanship with new-world digital replication. Let us frame the narrative ambition in terms of its emotional engineering. The plot, in its broad strokes, is a primal circuit. General Maximus Decimus Meridius, the beloved commander of the Roman armies in Germania, leads his soldiers to a final victory. His emperor, Marcus Aurelius, is a dying philosopher king who dreams of restoring the Republic. He names Maximus as his provisional successor, a guardian to wield power only long enough to give it back to the Senate. This act of political idealism ignites a chain reaction of betrayal. The emperor's son, Commodus, consumed by a desperate need for paternal love and imperial validation, murders his father and seizes the throne. He orders the execution of Maximus and his family. Maximus escapes, but too late to save his wife and son, who are brutally murdered. Enslaved, he is sold into the gladiatorial games, where his military genius and relentless will to survive transform him into a legendary champion. His path becomes a collision course with a new emperor, Commodus, a duel not just of swords but of ideologies, the disciplined, self-sacrificing ideal of Rome versus the narcissistic, populist corruption of it. This story is the film's core product. It is a deliberately archetypal design, chosen for its universal emotional resonance. It is a machine built to generate specific psychological responses: catharsis, outrage, sorrow, and triumphant vindication. The screenwriters, David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson were not merely crafting dialogue. They were tuning this machine, calibrating precise moments of loss, the weight of sacrifice, and the accelerating momentum of a comeback. The industry context of the year 2000 is critical to understanding the scale of this gamble. DreamWorks SKG, the studio founded by Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen, was still a relatively young entity. Gladiator was a statement project, a bid for both prestige and massive profitability. It was competing in a marketplace that was beginning to fragment, with home video sales still strong but the shadow of the coming digital streaming age not yet fully formed. The marketing campaign had to accomplish a Herculean task. It had to educate audiences on a genre they had forgotten they loved. Trailers emphasized not just action, but scale, emotion, and the chilling performance of Phoenix. The campaign sold pain and spectacle in equal measure. Furthermore, the film's release strategy was a global calculation. It wasn't just an American product. It was engineered for worldwide export, relying on the universal languages of visceral combat and familial tragedy to transcend cultural barriers. The economics were clear. To break even, the film needed to dominate not just the domestic box office but international territories, leveraging star power and directorial brand recognition to open in markets where the Roman Empire itself had never reached. So, as we begin this deep dive, we are not simply recalling a favorite film. We are conducting a forensic audit of a cinematic enterprise. We will examine how $103 million was converted into emotional capital. We will look at the technology that made dust and sunlight feel sacred, and the brutal logistics of filming battle scenes with hundreds of human beings. We will analyze the psychology of Commodus, a villain whose weakness is more terrifying than any strength, and the behavioral economics of the Roman mob, a market whose loyalty is purchased with blood and bread. We will track the marketing that turned a historical drama into a must-see event, and the legacy that turned a film into a permanent fixture of our cultural landscape. Gladiator is a masterclass in harmony, the harmony of art and commerce, of individual pain and collective spectacle, of ancient history and cutting-edge production. It is a monument built on a foundation of calculated risk. Let us now walk through its halls, from the frozen forests of Germania to the sun-bleached sand of the arena, and understand exactly how this empire was built, not in a day, but in a meticulously planned and violently executed 2-hour campaign to capture the world's imagination. The opening sequence of Gladiator is not a scene. It is a statement of industrial purpose. It is the first major allocation of the film's budget and directorial vision, designed for a single return on investment, your immediate and total belief. We begin in Germania, in the fog and mud of a final campaign. The camera glides through a forest of pine trees, brushing against the feathers of a small bird held in a soldier's hand. This is not random poetry. This is deliberate psychology. It is a quiet moment of humanity before the storm, a tiny emotional deposit that the film's narrative bank will spend later. The bird is released, and the quiet ends. What follows is a masterclass in cinematic engineering known as the Battle of Germania. Director Ridley Scott and cinematographer John Matheson do not shoot chaos. They choreograph clarity. The geography of the battle is always comprehensible. We see the Roman war machine not as a faceless horde, but as a system of interlocking parts: archers, cavalry, infantry, command. The camera finds General Maximus walking the line, touching shoulders, speaking calmly. At my signal, unleash hell. The line is famous, but its function is critical. It establishes Maximus as a leader whose authority is rooted in calm control, not rage. He is a manager of violence, a CEO of warfare. This entire sequence, costing millions and involving hundreds of extras, pyrotechnics, and complex stunts, serves as a film's prototype. It is the R&D phase of the emotional product. It must prove, in 10 minutes, that this world is real, that these stakes are mortal, and that this man is worth following into narrative darkness. The efficiency of this setup is a marvel of narrative accounting. Every scene that follows in the film's first half is a calculated transaction designed to build emotional equity that will be liquidated in the second half. After the victory, we enter the command tent of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The scene is lit like a Dutch painting, all warm gold and deep shadow. Hey, the film pivots from physical conflict to philosophical conflict. The dialogue is a contract. Marcus Aurelius, played with weary wisdom by Richard Harris, speaks of the Republic as a dream, as an ideal worth more than personal legacy. He offers Maximus the burden of power, not its glory. I want you to become a protector of Rome after I die. I will empower you to one end alone, to give power back to the people of Rome and end the corruption that has crippled it. This is the film's founding principle, its core ideological gamble. In a modern blockbuster, it dares to talk about governance, about the peaceful transfer of power, about civic duty. Maximus refuses, not out of ambition, but out of a deeper, more personal currency. I have one more duty, to go home. His desire is not for Rome, but for his farm, his wife, his son. This establishes his fundamental value system. His motivation is not power, but love. This creates a powerful emotional leverage. The audience invests in his simple dream, making its destruction that much more costly. The betrayal that follows is a narrative equivalent of a market crash. It is a sudden, catastrophic devaluation of all the emotional assets the film has just built. Commodus arrives, desperate for his father's approval. He is denied it in the most profound way. The throne is given to another. His reaction is not that of a strategic villain, but of a wounded child. His murder of his father is an act of pathetic, intimate violence, suffocation on a pillow. This choice is critical. It makes a villainy human, rooted in a dysfunctional psychology we can recognize, which makes it more terrifying than any grand evil scheme. Commodus then moves to consolidate his control. He offers Maximus his loyalty, and when Maximus, repulsed, refuses, the death order is signed. The subsequent sequence, Maximus fighting for his life in the woods, his desperate race home, is engineered for maximum emotional friction. We see his prowess, his relentless will to survive against imperial gods. The cutting between his struggle and the peaceful, sun-drenched scenes of his family on the farm creates agonizing dramatic irony. The audience holds the terrible knowledge that he is already too late. This is narrative risk management of the highest order. The film risks alienating the audience with despair, but it does so to secure a deeper, more furious investment. When Maximus finally arrives, collapsing to see his home burning and his family crucified, the loss is absolute. It is not just a plot point. It is the obliteration of his entire world, the total write-down of his personal future. The film's first half then enters its phase of reset and recalibration. Captured by slave traders, Maximus is broken, physically and spiritually. He is branded, chained, and transported to North Africa. This segment functions as the narrative's bankruptcy proceedings. All previous identity is stripped away. The great general is now a piece of merchandise. He is sold to Proximo, a former gladiator turned entrepreneur, played with world-weary pragmatism by Oliver Reed. Proximo's compound is a factory for entertainment. He is a small business owner in the bloodsport industry. His speech to his new stock, "I am Proximo. I shall be closer to you for the next few days, which will be the last of your miserable lives, than your own mothers," is not just exposition. It is a lesson in the local economics of survival. He explains the rules of the market. Entertain the crowd, and you earn your life. This transitions the film's central metaphor from warfare to commerce. The arena is a marketplace where the commodity is a spectacular death, and the currency is a crowd's roar. Maximus's first fights in the provincial arenas are his retraining. He learns to work the crowd, to understand that victory alone is not enough. It must be branded with style. He rediscovers his military tactics, applying them to this new, grotesque context. His anonymity becomes his armor, and his simmering rage becomes his fuel. The journey to Rome marks the final stage of the first half's narrative pipeline. It is a move from minor leagues to the major market. Proximo, seeing the unique value in his Gladiator, understands that Rome's Colosseum is the ultimate platform for scale. Win the crowd, he advises, and you will win your freedom. This line is the film's second great contract, shifting the goal from personal vengeance to a transactional path to liberation. As Maximus and the other gladiators first glimpse Rome, the film delivers one of its most iconic technological and emotional set pieces, the digital recreation of the city. This moment is a dual triumph. For the characters, it is the awe of scale, the intimidating sight of the empire's power. For the audience, in 2000, it was a revelation of digital filmmaking's potential. The shot was not just beautiful, it was a statement of capability. It proved that the film's technological investment could deliver emotional or seamlessly. It built credibility. The first half concludes with Maximus entering the underworld of the Gladiator barracks beneath the Colosseum, a subterranean inversion of the imperial palace above. He is now positioned at the very heart of Commodus's power, but as a slave, a ghost from the emperor's past. The narrative infrastructure is complete. The emotional debt has been incurred, the debt of a murdered family. The ideological conflict has been established, republic versus tyranny. The personal duel has been framed, the general and the emperor. All systems are now primed for the second half payoff, where every unit of established emotional capital will be spent in the pursuit of catharsis, and where the business of spectacle will become the engine of revolution. The second half of Gladiator is where the narrative risk converts into emotional return. Every emotional investment, every strategic setup established in the first hour now enters its phase of aggressive execution. The arena of the Colosseum is not merely a setting, it is a film's primary exchange floor, where reputation is traded, political capital is minted, and the audience's loyalty is a volatile currency that dictates survival. Maximus's first appearance in Rome is choreographed as a corporate branding launch. He enters not as a man, but as the Spaniard, a masked mystery. The battle against chariots and archers is a spectacle of pure problem-solving, a demonstration of his applied military intellect under extreme market pressure. He doesn't just win. He engineers victory through tactical innovation, commanding his small band of gladiators as a unified unit. When he finally reveals his face to the roaring crowd and defiantly throws his sword into the imperial box, it is more than a moment of drama. It is a hostile corporate takeover bid. He is announcing his presence not to Commodus, but to the most important shareholders in the room, the people of Rome. He is capturing market share in the attention economy of the arena. This public defiance triggers the core psychological conflict of the film's second half, the duel of minds between Maximus and Commodus. Commodus, played with unsettling fragility by Joaquin, is a masterclass in villainy as failed leadership. His reaction to Maximus's survival is not just anger, it is a catastrophic personal and professional insecurity. The ghost of his father's preferred successor has returned to haunt his reign in the most public forum possible. Commodus's attempts to regain control are all exercises in poor management. He tries to co-opt Maximus, then to have him murdered in the barracks, then to stack the odds against him in the arena with impossible matchups. Each attempt fails because Commodus misunderstands the nature of his opponent's power. He believes power flows from the throne, from title, from the formal hierarchy. Maximus's power flows from competence, from earned respect, and from the crowd's organic affection. This is a film's central lesson in behavioral economics. True authority is granted, not seized. Commodus, for all his imperial trappings, is constantly begging for validation, from the Senate, from the crowd, from the ghost of his father. Maximus commands it through silent action. This dynamic turns every game in the Colosseum into a high-stakes proxy war for the soul of Rome. The film then executes a critical narrative pivot. It moves the conflict from the public spectacle of the arena to the private intrigues of political conspiracy. Lucilla, Commodus's sister and Maximus's former lover, becomes the essential intermediary, the human pipeline between the world of the elite and the world of the slave. Her character represents the cost of survival under tyranny, the daily moral compromise required to protect her son. Her secret meetings with Maximus and Senator Gracchus are the film's venture capital meetings. They are planning a startup rebellion, seeking funding and alignment. Gracchus provides the political infrastructure, the senatorial contacts. Maximus provides the brand power, the populist appeal. Lucilla provides the access and the operational intelligence. This subplot is crucial because it broadens the stakes. It is no longer just one man's revenge. It is a systemic overhaul of governance. The plan to smuggle Maximus out of Rome and unite him with his former legions is a logistical operation with an immense failure cost. It adds layers of suspense and scale, transforming a personal duel into a potential civil war. This expansion of scope justifies the film's epic runtime and deepens the emotional investment. We are no longer just watching for a fight. We are watching for the rebirth of an ideal. The emotional core of the second half, however, resides in its quietest moments. To understand the psychology of Gladiator is to analyze a marketplace of human decisions under extreme emotional and moral inflation. Every major character operates under a system of behavioral economics where the traditional currencies of power, love, and safety have been radically devalued, and new, desperate forms of exchange take their place. Maximus Decimus Meridius begins the film as a man whose value system is perfectly calibrated: loyalty to Rome, love for his family, and honor in command. His psychology is that of a complete, integrated system. The trauma of his family's murder is not just a personal loss. It is a catastrophic system failure that wipes his entire internal ledger clean. The man who once led legions now has a single asset left on his balance sheet: a desire for vengeance. This reduction is the core of his psychological journey. His decision-making under pressure becomes a fascinating study in focused asset allocation. Every action, from surviving the slave markets to manipulating the crowd in the arena, is an investment of his remaining will toward that ultimate payoff. He is a psychological venture capitalist, putting all his emotional capital into one high-risk, high-reward fund: the death of Commodus. The cost of this focus is a deliberate suppression of all other aspects of his humanity: grief, hope, even the will to live beyond his goal. His leadership in the gladiatorial school is not born of a new desire to lead, but of the recognition that followers are a necessary resource to achieve his ends. Commodus presents a textbook case of psychological fragility masked by absolute power. His behavioral economics are driven by a catastrophic deficit, a bottomless need for paternal love and validation that can never be filled, because the source, Marcus Aurelius, is dead by his own hand. Every decision Commodus makes is an attempt to arbitrage this deficit. He seeks to purchase love and respect through spectacle, through the forced adoration of the mob, through the subjugation of the Senate. His offer of reconciliation to Maximus is not genuine diplomacy. It is an attempt to acquire the validation of the one man his father valued above him. When this fails, his strategy shifts to trying to destroy that asset, believing that eliminating the competition will finally allow the market to recognize his inherent value. This is a profound psychological error. He conflates the elimination of alternatives with the creation of genuine worth. His deep-seated insecurity makes him a poor reader of the very market he tries to manipulate. He misprices the crowd's affection, believing it can be bought with mere violence and scale, while they are truly investing in Maximus's authenticity and competence. His final, cheating stab before the duel is the ultimate admission of his own psychological bankruptcy. He knows his intrinsic value cannot win in a fair exchange, so he must corrupt the marketplace itself. His psychology is a cycle of self-sabotage, where every attempt to fill a deficit only widens it, ultimately leading to a total emotional and political loss. Lucilla operates in the most complex psychological landscape of all, the realm of perpetual opportunity cost. Her every decision is a painful calculation between the safety of her son, her lingering feelings for Maximus, her duty to her father's dream, and her survival under her brother's unstable rule. She is the film's chief risk analyst, constantly assessing volatile emotional and political variables. Her psychology is defined by the burden of foresight. She sees the consequences of every path, making her inherently cautious yet strategically brilliant. When she decides to engage in conspiracy, it is not a leap of faith but a calculated risk assessment where the potential cost of inaction, a roam forever under Commodus's decaying mind, finally outweighs the terrifying personal risk of action. Her trauma is less acute than Maximus's but more chronic. It is a daily erosion of self under pressure compromise. Her leadership is quiet, relational, and built on network leverage rather than direct command. She manages the human pipelines between the Senate, the barracks, and the palace, her psychology perfectly adapted to the shadows where she is forced to operate. Her ultimate success is not in victory, but in ensuring her son's future and facilitating the conditions for Maximus to succeed, a payoff that justifies a lifetime of psychological hedging. The supporting characters provide a spectrum of psychological responses to the same corrupt system. Proximo represents the psychology of the pragmatic survivor. He has moneized his trauma, turning his own past as a gladiator into a business model. His initial relationship with Maximus is purely transactional. He is an asset manager. Yet, the sight of Maximus's unbroken honor and greater cause triggers a latent psychological conflict, the memory of his own lost dignity. His final decision to help Maximus is a classic behavioral economic shift. He recalculates the value of his remaining life, deciding that investing in a principal and likely death has a higher psychological return than continuing his safe, compromised existence. It is a move from extrinsic to intrinsic valuation. Senator Gracchus represents the psychology of institutional idealism under siege. His intelligence is his primary asset, and his strategy is one of patience and coalition building, waiting for the market to turn against the tyrant. Juba, the Numidian gladiator, provides a psychological counterpoint to Maximus's focused vengeance. He is a philosopher of loss, teaching acceptance and the hope of spiritual reunion. His psychology is one of endurance without the need for violent payoff, offering a different, quieter model of surviving trauma. The Roman mob itself is a powerful psychological entity, a collective mind driven by behavioral cues. Their loyalty is the most volatile currency in the film. They are not ideological. They are sensational. They respond to brand, to spectacle, to narrative. They flip from cheering for Commodus to adoring Maximus based on demonstrated competence and compelling spectacle. They are the ultimate consumer market, and their psychology is ruthlessly efficient. They invest their cheers in the product that delivers the most thrilling emotional return. Understanding this mob psychology is key to the film's plot. Maximus learns to manipulate it. Commodus fails to understand it, and the Senate fears it. Finally, the psychology of Marcus Aurelius, though seen briefly, casts a long shadow. He represents the ideal of the Stoic philosopher king, a psychology where reason governs emotion, and duty transcends personal desire. His failure was a psychological misreading of his own son, an error in risk assessment that cost the empire daily. In totality, Gladiator presents a world where psychology is the ultimate capital. Trauma, love, honor, and fear are the assets and liabilities traded on the floor of personal and political arenas. The characters' journeys are audits of their psychological portfolios, showing that in the end, the decisions made under the extreme pressure of loss and power reveal the fundamental, often tragic, valuation of the human soul. The financial architecture of Gladiator is a monumental case study in high-risk, high-reward cinematic investment. The production budget, a formidable $103 million, approximate, was not a single check, but a carefully allocated pool of capital deployed across a minefield of creative and logistical risks. This sum, in the year 2000, placed the film firmly in the upper echelon of blockbuster filmmaking, a statement of intent from DreamWorks Pictures. To contextualize this, $103 million represented approximately 170,000 ounces of gold at the time, or the GDP of a small nation. This capital was allocated across several high-cost vectors: above-the-line talent fees for director Ridley Scott and stars Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix, below-the-line wages for a crew of thousands, the physical construction of massive sets including a partial Roman city and the Colosseum floor in Malta in England, the creation of thousands of period-accurate costumes and props, the pioneering use of digital effects to extend sets and crowds, and logistical nightmare housing. feeding, and ensuring this entire temporary civilization. Each dollar was a wager on the audience's appetite for a genre considered commercially extinct. The budget was a calculated bet that Scott's directorial vision and the story's primal emotional core could overcome genre fatigue and achieve global scale. The marketing and distribution spend is a story unto itself, a secondary wave of capital required to ensure the primary investment reached its market. While exact figures are often closely guarded, industry estimates suggest the global marketing and distribution costs for a film of this scale in 2000 could easily add another $50 to $60 million to the total outlay, pushing the full cost of bringing Gladiator to the world toward a staggering $160 million. This P&L, profit and loss, pressure defined every strategic decision. The marketing campaign, therefore, had to be multifaceted and aggressive. Trailers were engineered to sell both spectacle and soul, cutting between the thunderous action of the battles and the intimate tragedy of Maximus's loss. The iconic poster, with Crowe's determined gaze and the tagline "A hero will rise," was a masterstroke of brand positioning, promising a redemptive arc. This campaign was a global rollout, tailored to key international territories. The distribution strategy was a classic wide-release model, leveraging the Memorial Day weekend in the United States as a launchpad for worldwide dominance, aiming to build an unstoppable wave of word-of-mouth and critical acclaim. The break-even logic for Gladiator was a complex equation factoring in multiple revenue streams. The rule of thumb in studio economics is that a film must typically gross 2.5 to 3 times its production budget to account for marketing costs, theater owners' shares, which can be 50% or more of the box office, and other distribution fees. Using the $160 million total cost estimate, the film likely needed to generate between $400 and $480 million in worldwide box office receipts just to reach its break-even point. This is the immense financial risk DreamWorks undertook. Every screening, in every theater, in every country, was a small transaction contributing to this mountainous goal. The film's performance, therefore, was not just about art. It was a relentless, weeks-long financial marathon. The pressure on the opening weekend numbers was enormous, as it would set the narrative for the film's financial viability in the trade papers and influence its longevity in theaters. The box office results tell a story of spectacular financial validation. Gladiator opened to $34.8 million domestically on Memorial Day weekend, a strong but not record-shattering start. However, it demonstrated exceptional staying power, a phenomenon known as legs in industry parlance. This indicated that the product had a quality that drove repeat viewings and strong word of mouth, the holy grail of marketing. It wasn't a flash in the pan. It was a durable asset. Domestically, it went on to gross approximately $187.7 million. Its true power, however, was revealed in the international market, where it amassed a colossal $269.2 million. The worldwide total reached $457 million, approximate. Analyzing this against our break-even estimate, the film likely reached or came very close to a theatrical break-even point from box office alone, a massive achievement. This gross positioned it as the second highest-grossing film of 2000 worldwide, a remarkable feat for a historical drama. But the theatrical run is only the first window in the film's financial life cycle. The subsequent revenue streams are where the profit engine truly ignited. The home video release was a windfall. In the era before widespread streaming, DVD and VHS sales were a gigantic profit center, often with higher margins than theatrical. Gladiator was a crown jewel for this market, a film perfectly suited for repeat home viewing. It topped sales charts for months, generating hundreds of millions in additional revenue. Television licensing rights, both pay TV, like HBO, and network broadcasts, represented another massive long-term annuity. The film's prestige and popularity ensured it commanded top dollar for these licenses for years. Merchandising, while less central than for a franchise film, still contributed through soundtrack sales. The Zimmer Gerard score was a huge hit, posters, and other licensed goods. The film also entered the lucrative world of syndication and later, streaming licensing, becoming a permanent asset in the libraries of services like Netflix and Amazon Prime. When all these downstream revenue streams are accounted for, home video, television, streaming, and ancillary rights, the total lifetime revenue generated by Gladiator is estimated by analysts to be well over $1 billion. This transforms the initial $103 million investment into one of the most successful ROI, return on investment, stories of its era. The financial legacy extends beyond direct profit. The film's success recalibrated the industry's risk assessment of historical epics, directly greenlighting a wave of films like Troy Alexander and Kingdom of Heaven Star. It solidified Ridley Scott as a bankable director of mega-budget spectacles and made Russell Crowe a global A-list star, whose subsequent salary demands were a direct function of this film's performance. For DreamWorks, it was a prestige and financial triumph that helped solidify the studio's standing. Furthermore, the film's technological achievements, particularly its use of digital crowds and sets, became a new industry standard, affecting the cost and feasibility of future productions. In essence, Gladiator was not just a profitable film, it was a financial instrument that altered market behavior. It proved that emotional intelligence, when married to grand-scale production, could be a safer bet than anyone had imagined, turning a genre considered a relic into a vault of modern gold. Its economics are a masterclass in how a well-engineered cinematic product can dominate every available revenue channel, from the collective gasp of a theater audience to the quiet click of a remote in a living room a decade later, generating value long after the final credit rolled. The filmmaking technology of Gladiator represents a pivotal moment in cinematic engineering, a hybrid model where brutal physical practicality and nascent digital frontier work were forced into a seamless alliance. This was not a film that could be made entirely with computers, nor could it be made without them. The production's technological mandate was to achieve a visceral, tangible authenticity that would ground the epic in a believable reality, while using digital tools to achieve the impossible scale that reality demanded. This dual pipeline approach required immense coordination and innovation. Cinematographer John Matheson, collaborating with Ridley Scott's legendary visual sense, made foundational choices that defined the film's texture. They chose to shoot on 35mm film stock, but with a specific, aggressive approach. To achieve a heightened, almost mythic contrast, they famously utilized a digital intermediate process for color grading that was still in its relative infancy. They pushed the photochemical process through a technique called the bleach bypass, which retains silver halide crystals on the film emulsion, resulting in deeper blacks, richer contrast, and desaturated colors. This gave the film its iconic, gritty, yet painterly look. The mud of Germania felt cold and heavy, the gold of Rome felt tarnished, and the blood in the arena felt stark and real. This was a deliberate technological choice to create an emotional psychology through color and light, to make the ancient world feel immediate and unforgiving. The camera and lens selection were tools of both intimacy and epic scope. For the intimate dialogue scenes, especially those in shadowy interiors like the Imperial Palace or Proximo's quarters, Scott and Matheson employed a shallower depth of field, focusing on the actor's eyes and the subtle play of emotion, often using controlled, source-driven lighting that mimicked torchlight or sunbeams. For the vast battle and arena sequences, they switched to a different technological grammar. They used multiple cameras, often with long lenses, to compress the action and create a sense of chaotic proximity, and wide lenses to establish immense geography. The groundbreaking opening battle utilized a revolutionary camera system for its time. The film frame, a heavily armored, gyroscope-stabilized remote head that could be carried at speed through the chaos, allowing for the now iconic sweeping, fluid shots that plunge the audience into the heart of the melee without a single cut. This was not just a cool shot. It was a technological solution to a narrative problem, how to convey the organized chaos of Roman warfare from a perspective that felt both godlike and immersive. The creation of the film's physical environments was a feat of large-scale industrial construction. The production built a massive, partial replica of the Roman Forum and a full-scale section of the Colosseum floor and underground tunnels, the Hypogeum, at Fort Ricasoli in Malta. This was not a facade. It was a functional set engineered for complex action. The hypogeum, with its elevators, pulleys, and cages, was a working machine, allowing for the dynamic entrances of gladiators and animals. The cost and time required to build these sets were enormous, but they provided an irreplaceable asset: real surfaces for light to hit, real textures for the camera to capture, and a real, tactile environment for the actors to inhabit. The dust, the sweat, the echo of footsteps on stone, these sensory details were generated authentically, providing a foundation of truth that digital effects alone could not replicate at time. The thousands of costumes and props, each researched and crafted, added to this dense physical reality, creating a world with weight and history. Where physical construction reached its limit, digital technology took over, and this is where Gladiator truly made its mark on filmmaking history. The most famous challenge was the Colosseum itself. Building a full-scale Colosseum was financially and logistically impossible. The solution was a masterstroke of digital and practical fusion. The production built the first tier, the arena floor and the first level of seating, practically in Malta. For the wide shots that required the full, teeming majesty of the completed stadium, visual effects houses a mill and MPC were brought in. Using a combination of detailed miniature models for lighting reference in some shots and groundbreaking digital map paintings and crowd replication, they extended the set seamlessly. The digital artists created approximately 2,000 unique digital extras, which were then replicated, given varied animations, cheering, sitting, standing, and placed in the upper tiers to create a crowd of over 35,000. This was a quantum leap beyond the repeating loops of older films. The technology, while primitive by today's standards, sold the illusion completely because it was built upon a practical base. The light on the real lower seats matched the light on the digital upper seats. The dust in the air was consistent, and the sound design sold the scale. This technical achievement solved a fundamental problem of scale, allowing the film to present its central arena as a believable, overwhelming entity. The film's editing pipeline, managed by Pietro Scalia, was another form of technological orchestration. The battle sequences, particularly the opening Germania conflict, are masterclasses in clear, rhythmic editing. Scalia used rapid cuts not to confuse, but to orient: a flash of a face, the arc of a sword, the trajectory of a flaming arrow, building a comprehensible geography of violence. The software used, likely early versions of Avid or similar nonlinear systems, allowed for this precise, frame-specific control over thousands of feet of footage. Sound design and mixing, which we will explore in depth later, were technological endeavors of equal ambition, building the oral world from the ground up. Furthermore, the film's tragic production halt following the death of Oliver Reed during filming presented a unique technological crisis. Reed had scenes remaining. The solution involved a combination of creative rewrites, the use of a body double, and, crucially, early digital face replacement technology. Using footage of Reed shot earlier and a combination of lighting tricks and digital compositing, the team completed his scenes. This was a sobering and innovative use of technology not for spectacle, but for salvage, demonstrating its role as a critical risk mitigation tool in a multi-million-dollar enterprise. In totality, Gladiator stood at a crossroads. It used the mature, muscle and sweat technology of large-scale practical filmmaking and married it to the embryonic, code-based power of the digital age. This hybrid model became the blueprint for the next 2 decades of epic filmmaking, proving that the most powerful illusions are built where the real world ends and the rendered world begins, without the audience ever sensing the seam. The pursuit of historical and scientific accuracy in Gladiator was not an academic exercise. It was a critical component of the film's brand credibility and emotional engineering. In a film built on the massive risk of resurrecting a dormant genre, authenticity was the armor against audience skepticism. If the swords felt fake, the politics childish, or the details of Roman life anachronistic, The entire monumental enterprise would collapse under the weight of its own artifice. Therefore, a significant investment of time and capital was allocated to research and consultation. The production employed a team of historical advisors, including historians and archaeologists, who served as a reality check pipeline feeding into the departments of costume, set design, props, and even dialogue. Their role was to provide a foundation of truth upon which the necessary myth-making of Hollywood could be safely constructed. This created a fascinating tension, a push and pull between documented fact and narrative necessity that defines a film's relationship with history. The goal was not a documentary recreation, but a persuasive illusion, a world that felt internally consistent and grounded enough that the audience would grant the film permission to be a myth. Let's dissect the accuracies first, the pillars upon which the illusion stands. The physical details are remarkably well researched. The design of the Roman armor, particularly the larica segmentata plates worn by the legionaries in Germania, is largely correct for the late 2nd century AD. The weaponry, gladiator short swords, pilum javelins, scutum shields, are accurately reproduced. The architecture of the partial forum set in Malta was based on real archaeological plans, giving the city a believable topography. The gladiator armor, while stylized for cinematic flair, real historical gladiator gear was often more basic and functional, uses correct terminology and general forms. The murmillo helmet, the secutor's arm guard, the logistics of the games themselves, from the underground hypogeum with its elevators and cages to the ritualized procession of gladiators, are grounded in historical understanding. Even smaller details, like the use of thumbs up and thumbs down for life or death, though the exact gesture is debated by historians, the betting among the crowd, and the role of the editor, the game's producer, feel authentic. This dense texture of correct details creates a powerful verisimilitude, a baseline reality that makes the more fantastical elements palatable. However, Gladiator takes significant and deliberate liberties with historical fact, and these are not failures but conscious creative choices in service of drama and theme. The most glaring liberty is the central plot itself. Marcus Aurelius did not die by his son's hand. He likely died of plague or natural causes in 180 AD. Commodus did not murder him, though their relationship was strained. Commodus and co-ruled with his brother for a time before having him killed, and his reign lasted 12 years, not a brief period as the film suggests. There was no General Maximus. He is a composite fictional hero. The film's climax, with a single gladiator battle deciding the fate of the Republic, is pure myth. These are monumental changes. Why were they made? The answer lies in narrative efficiency and emotional psychology. The real Commodus's reign was a slow, bizarre decline into megalomania. To condense this into a compelling 2-hour arc required a clear, personal antagonist and a catalyst. Patricide provides that. The real history lacked a clear, noble protagonist opposing him. The Senate was fragmented and often complicit. Maximus provides a perfect, relatable avatar for the audience, a man of honor wronged, who channels the audience's desire for justice. The film trades chronological accuracy for archetypal power, transforming a complex historical period into a timeless fable of good versus corrupt authority. The film's portrayal of Roman politics and society also simplifies for clarity. The idea of Marcus Aurelius wanting to restore the Republic to the people is a noble fiction. While a Stoic philosopher, he was a pragmatic emperor with no serious plan to dissolve the imperial system. The film's Senate is portrayed as a largely noble body chafing under a tyrant, whereas in reality it was often self-serving. This simplification creates a clear ideological battleground, the virtuous republic versus a corrupt empire. It gives Maximus's fight a higher purpose beyond personal vengeance, elevating the story to a political myth. Similarly, the depiction of the Roman mob as a fickle, bloodthirsty entity is historically accurate in spirit, if dramatized. Their portrayal is key to the film's themes of populism and control. Commodus tries to buy them with bread and circuses. Maximus wins them with honor and skill. This dynamic, while heightened, reflects genuine tensions in Roman society between elite authority and popular will. On the frontier of scientific accuracy, the film engages less with hard science and more with the technology and material science of the ancient world. The engineering shown, catapults, ballistae, the mechanics of the hypogeum, is plausible if streamlined for cinematic punch. The medical knowledge is minimal but not egregiously wrong. Wounds are fatal, infections set in. The greatest scientific liberty is perhaps in the physics of combat, which is stylized for excitement and clarity. Real Roman combat was a brutal, shield-pushing scrum. The film's battles are more dynamic and individualistic, allowing the audience to follow Maximus's leadership and skill. In the final analysis, Gladiator's approach to accuracy is one of intelligent compromise. It builds a meticulously researched world of textures, props, and social rituals to achieve credibility. Then, within that credible shell, it places a mythic, emotionally charged story that sacrifices specific facts for universal truths about power, betrayal, and redemption. The educational value is not in learning the precise timeline of 180 AD, but in understanding the psychological and political dynamics of autocracy, the economics of spectacle, and the enduring human appeal of the hero's journey. It uses history as a scaffold, not a cage, building a structure that feels true enough to believe in, so that the deeper, more timeless story it wants to tell can resonate with the force of legend. The film's legacy, in part, is proof that this strategy worked. Audiences around the world embrace not a history lesson, but a historical myth that felt authentic in its bones, if not in its specific biography. The cinematography of Gladiator is not mere photography. It is a system of visual engineering designed to manipulate time, scale, and emotional temperature. Every frame is a deliberate calculation and a language of light, shadow, and movement that serves the dual masters of narrative clarity and epic grandeur. Cinematographer John Matheson, under Ridley Scott's meticulous direction, employed a philosophy that can be described as mythic naturalism. The goal was to make the ancient world feel both authentically gritty and operatically heightened, as if we were seeing history through a lens that intensifies its inherent drama. This was achieved through a ruthless control of color palette and contrast. The film famously utilized a photochemical process called a bleach bypass during the creation of intermediate prints. This technique, a form of technological alchemy, leaves silver grains in the emulsion, resulting in crushed blacks, desaturated colors, and a significant increase in contrast. The practical effect is profound. The mud of Germania becomes a monochrome sea of cold despair, the gold in Rome acquires a tarnished, oppressive weight, and the blood in the arena stands out with shocking, visceral clarity. This was not an aesthetic whim, it was an emotional filter. It visually communicated the film's core psychology, a world where moral clarity is stark, black and white, but lived in a degraded, washed-out reality. The geometry of composition in Gladiator is a masterclass in using the frame to communicate power, vulnerability, and scale. Scott and Matheson consistently use architectural lines to imprison or liberate their subjects. In Rome, characters are often framed within doorways, arches, and colonnades, emphasizing the rigid structures of society and politics that confine them. Commodus is frequently shot from low angles within these vast, empty palace spaces, making him look simultaneously powerful and isolated, a small man in a giant cage of his own inheritance. In contrast, Maximus in the open spaces, the Germanian forest, the wheat field of his memory, the arena floor, is often framed against the horizon or the sky, associating him with freedom, nature, and a moral compass unconstrained by walls. The arena itself is shot with a mix of extreme high-angle wide shots, reducing the combatants to insects in the sandbox of the gods, the crowd, and intimate, shaky, ground-level shots that place us in the choking dust and panic of the fight. This dynamic shift in perspective is a form of visual economics, constantly renegotiating the viewer's relationship to the action, from detached observer to vulnerable participant. The physics of light in the film is treated with near-religious reverence, each source having narrative intent. In the interiors, lighting is almost exclusively practical or source-driven. Torches, oil lamps, and slivers of daylight through shutters provide the only illumination. This creates pockets of clarity and pools of shadow, a visual metaphor for the truth struggling to emerge in a world of conspiracy. The flickering torchlight on faces in the Senate or in the barracks creates a sense of instability and unease. In the exteriors, the sun is a brutal, unforgiving character. In Germania, the light is cold, diffuse, and filtered through fog and smoke, a milky gloom that makes a fire battle the only warm element. In North Africa and Rome, the sun is a hammer. It bleaches the stone, creates hard, defining shadows, and turns the arena into a blinding crucible. This harsh, high-contrast sunlight exposes everything: the sweat, the doubt, the fear, the determination. It denies the comfort of softness, forcing a raw, unfiltered reality. The memorable dream sequences of Maximus's home, however, are bathed in a completely different light, a warm, hazy, golden hour glow that feels tactile and ethereal, a visual manifestation of memory as a sanctuary. The lighting design is a direct emotional currency, telling us how to feel about a place before a single word is spoken. The camera's movement is another critical tool, engineered for specific psychological effects. The film opens with a languid, dreamlike glide through the pine forest, the camera brushing against a soldier's hand, an immediate establishment of a tactile, sensory world. This serenity is shattered by the chaotic, yet meticulously choreographed kineticism of the Battle of Germania. Here, the camera becomes a participant. It employs a then-revolutionary tool, the film frame remote head, a gyroscope-stabilized camera that could be carried at a sprint through the chaos. This allowed for fluid, unbroken shots that snake through the battle, giving the audience an immersive, first-person sense of the terror and confusion while maintaining a shocking clarity of geography. We are in the chaos, but we are not lost. In the arena, the camera work shifts again. It adopts the language of modern sports broadcasting and spectacle, rapid zooms to catch a reaction in the crowd, slow motion to emphasize the brutal beauty of a killing stroke, and sweeping crane shots that reveal the terrifying scale of the Colosseum. This variety of movement creates a dynamic visual rhythm, preventing epic fatigue and constantly re-engaging the viewer's eye and emotional response. Finally, the color science of the film, though desaturated, uses specific hues with symbolic precision. The dominant palette is a spectrum of browns, grays, and ochres, the colors of earth, stone, and dust. This grounds a film in a tangible, worn reality. Against this muted backdrop, specific colors are allowed to pop with symbolic weight. Red is the most powerful. It is the color of empire, the Roman banners, of violence, blood, and of passion. The red banner falling onto Maximus's shoulder after the Germania victory marks him. The red sand of the arena is where his destiny is written. Gold is a color of corrupt power and decay. The gilding in the palace feels heavy and sickly. The cool blue of twilight and the warm gold of memory are reserved for Maximus's inner life, his psychological escape. The green of the wheat field is the film's only pure, vibrant natural color, representing a paradise lost and a spiritual destination. This controlled use of color is a subtle but powerful form of visual storytelling, guiding the audience's subconscious associations. In totality, the cinematography of Gladiator is a holistic system. The bleach bypass process, the architectural composition, the source-driven lighting, the purposeful camera movement, and the symbolic color design are not separate techniques. They are interlocking components of a single visual machine engineered for one purpose: to make us believe, on a visceral, pre-verbal level, in the reality, the scale, and the emotional truth of a myth that happened a long time ago. In a world both alien and intimately familiar, it is visual world-building of the highest order, where every shadow, Every beam of light and every frame is a calculated investment in the audience's belief. The sound design and music production of Gladiator constitute a parallel cinematic architecture, an oral empire built from the ground up to complement, complicate, and elevate the visual narrative. This is not a film with background music. It is a film where sound and score are active, breathing characters in the drama, engineered with the same meticulous care as the sets and costumes. The responsibility for this immense undertaking was split between two titanic forces, Hans Zimmer and Lisa Gerrard, who composed the iconic score, and the sound design team at Skywalker Sound, led by supervising sound editor Per Holborg. Their work represents a massive investment of time, technology, and creative capital, and its return is measured in the film's overwhelming emotional resonance. The soundscape of Gladiator is designed to be felt in the body as much as heard by the ear, a tactile experience that pulls the audience into the physical reality of the ancient world while simultaneously guiding their heart through its mythic journey. Let's begin with the sound design, the foundation of the oral world. This was an exercise in organic creation and brutal clarity. Every sound had to feel authentic, weighty, and distinct. The team recorded thousands of custom sound effects. The clang of swords was not a stock library sound. It was a recording of real, period-accurate metal striking metal, layered and processed to have a specific, lethal timbre. The sound of the crowd in the Colosseum is a masterpiece of acoustic engineering. It is not a simple roar. It is a complex, multi-layered entity built from recordings of real sports stadiums, opera audiences, and stage vocal sessions, then spatially designed to reflect the specific architecture of the arena, the way sound would bounce off stone, be absorbed by bodies, and funnel down into the hypogeum. When the crowd chants, "Maximus! Maximus!" it feels like a physical wave of pressure. The ambient backgrounds are equally detailed. The distant horns of a legion camp, the chirp of crickets in a Germanian forest, the rustle of silk in a palace, the haunting echo of footsteps in a stone corridor. These sounds build the world's texture. In battle, the sound design achieves a terrifying clarity. You can distinguish the whistle of an arrow, the thud of its impact, the gasp of a dying man, the snort of a horse, and the crush of shield on shield, all within a chaotic mix that never becomes muddy. This clarity is a deliberate narrative choice. It allows the audience to process the chaos, to understand the tactics and the personal stakes within the maelstrom. The music, however, is the film's soul, and its creation was a landmark fusion of traditional orchestration and ancient, spiritual soundscapes. Hans Zimmer took a radical approach. Instead of a standard symphonic score, he built the music around core thematic cells and textures. The most famous is a two-note motif for Maximus, a simple, repeating pattern of strings that feels both relentless and mournful, a musical expression of his dogged perseverance and profound grief. Zimmer utilized a large orchestra but treated it unconventionally, using low brass and pounding percussion to create a sense of immense power and militaristic drive. The genius stroke was a collaboration with Lisa Gerrard. Her otherworldly voice, capable of wordless, profound sorrow and transcendent hope, became the emotional voice of the film. Her solo in Now We Are Free, the track that closes the film, is not a song in a traditional sense. It is a spiritual release, a vocalization of Maximus's journey to the Elysian fields. The music's dynamic range is vast, from the near-silent, breathy tension of conspiracy scene to the overwhelming, percussive fury of the battle themes. This range is a direct emotional control mechanism, modulating the audience's heart rate and focus. The technology behind this oral achievement was state-of-the-art for its time and involved immense logistical coordination. The score was recorded at iconic studios like Abbey Road in London, blending a 100-piece orchestra with exotic instruments like the army-named duduk in Gerard's voice, which was often processed and layered to create a choir of one effect. The sound design and final mix were crafted at Skywalker Sound, a facility equipped with the most advanced digital audio workstations and mixing stages capable of intricate spatial audio design. In a pre-Dolby Atmos era, the film's 5.1 mix was considered reference quality. The mixing process itself, the balancing of dialogue, sound effects, and music, was a delicate political negotiation. In key scenes, the mixers made bold choices. During Maximus's revelation of his identity to Commodus in the arena, the crowd noise and music drop away almost entirely, leaving only the stark, intimate venom of his whispered speech. This silence is more powerful than any sound. The mix creates a vacuum of attention, forcing the audience to lean in and absorb the monumental psychological impact of the moment. This is sound design as strategic subtraction. Finally, we must consider the sound as an emotional and financial asset. The score album became a global bestseller, a significant revenue stream that extended the film's brand far beyond the theater. Tracks like A Battle and Now We Are Free entered the cultural lexicon, used in trailers, sporting events, and memorials for years, generating ongoing royalties. The sound design set a new benchmark for historical epics, its technique studied and emulated. The oral experience was a critical component of the film's word-of-mouth appeal. People didn't just say they saw Gladiator *. They said the * felt it. The thunder of the horses, the visceral crunch of combat, the haunting beauty of Gerard's voice. These were sensory memories that drove repeat viewings. In the economy of the film's success, the investment in world-class sound was a high-yield decision. It provided the intangible quality of immersion, the feeling of being transported, which is the most valuable product cinema can sell. The sound and music of Gladiator * did not accompany the story. They completed it, building an invisible coliseum around the listener's heart and mind, proving that the most powerful empires in film are often built not of stone and light, but of air and vibration, carefully shaped into something that can make an entire audience feel the dust in their throats and the hope in their soul. The marketing strategy for Gladiator * was a campaign of calculated escalation, designed to overcome the fundamental market risk of a dormant genre and position a complex, R-rated historical drama as a must-see global event. The core challenge for DreamWorks' marketing team was one of product positioning, how to sell a film that was both an intimate tragedy and a colossal spectacle, a thinking person's drama and a visceral action epic, without confusing or alienating either potential audience segment. The solution was a masterclass in dual-channel marketing, creating campaigns that spoke simultaneously to the heart and the adrenal glands. The foundational element was a trailer, a product unto itself that had to accomplish in 2 minutes what the film did in 2.5 hours, establish scale, introduce the emotional stakes, and promise cathartic payoff. The final theatrical trailer is a textbook example of efficient narrative engineering. It opens not with action, but with haunting silence and the image of a hand brushing wheat, immediately establishing a tone of loss and memory. It then rapidly escalates through iconic shots, the battle lines in Germania, the grandeur of Rome, the roar of the Colosseum, the intensity of Crowe's and Phoenix's performances. The music swells from mournful to triumphant. The tagline, the general who became a slave, the slave who became a gladiator, the gladiator who defied an emperor, is a perfect 3-act structure in a single sentence. This trailer was not just an advertisement. It was a miniature version of the film's emotional arc, a proof of concept that demonstrated the product's quality and scope. The demographic targeting for Gladiator * had to be broad yet precise. The film naturally appealed to older audiences drawn to historical drama and prestige filmmaking. Award buzz was cultivated early, and to younger audiences drawn to action and spectacle. The marketing materials, therefore, had to balance these appeals. Print ads in magazines like *Time* or *The New Yorker* emphasized the critical acclaim and epic scale, using the iconic imagery of Crowe in the Colosseum. Ads in more youth-oriented or entertainment-focused channels highlighted the intense action sequences. The official poster, with Crowe's determined, dirt-streaked face and the stock title, became an instantly recognizable brand asset, conveying grim determination and epic scale without a single word. The marketing also cleverly leveraged the film's technological achievements as a selling point, emphasizing the groundbreaking visual effects and behind-the-scenes featurettes that aired on entertainment news shows, appealing to the technically-minded moviegoer. This multi-pronged approach ensured that the film's market penetration was as wide as possible, attempting to capture not just a niche, but a mass, cross-generational audience. The economics of the marketing spend, likely in the $50 to $60 million range globally, followed classic CPM, cost per mil, and conversion logic. Television spots during high viewership events like sports games and award shows ensured massive reach. The media buy was a global operation, with tailored campaigns in key international markets like the UK, Europe, and Japan, where historical epics often performed well. The press and publicity tool was a major component of the spend, putting Russell Crowe and Ridley Scott on magazine covers and talk shows, building the narrative of the film as an epic, arduous, and passionate undertaking. This making of narrative itself became a marketing tool, increasing the perceived value of the product. The premiere was a spectacle befitting the film, generating photogenic buzz. Every dollar spent was an investment in opening weekend momentum, with the understanding that for a film of this cost, a strong opening was non-negotiable to trigger the word of mouth that would carry it to profitability. Post-release, the marketing strategy exhibited intelligent pivots based on audience analytics and critical reception. The initial box office, while strong, showed the film had exceptional legs, meaning people kept seeing it week after week. This data point was leveraged in subsequent advertising, with ads now trumpeting the epic triumph and quoting rave reviews, shifting from selling anticipation to selling consensus. As award season approached, the marketing machine smoothly transitioned into Oscar campaign mode. This is a distinct, high-stakes sub-industry within film marketing. For your consideration, ads flooded trade publications like *Variety* and *The Hollywood Reporter*, targeting Academy voters. Screenings were held for Guild members. The campaign focused on the film's artistic merits, its direction, acting, cinematography, and score, to cement its legacy and drive further box office from audiences wanting to see an award-winning film. This paid off spectacularly with 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Crowe. Each award win was immediately piloted into renewed marketing energy, extending the film's theatrical life and supercharging its home video launch. The ultimate metric of the marketing strategy's success is a conversion of capital into cultural capital. It took a $103 million production and a $60 million marketing budget and transformed it into a global box office of $457 million and a lifetime revenue stream well over $1 billion. But beyond the raw numbers, the marketing successfully repositioned the historical epic in the modern cinematic landscape. It proved the genre could be both intelligent and massively popular, that audiences would engage with complex themes if delivered with overwhelming craft and emotional power. The marketing didn't just sell a movie, it sold a feeling, the feeling of being part of a grand, important, emotionally devastating experience. It created a brand so strong that Gladiator became shorthand for a certain type of epic filmmaking. The trailers, the posters, the music, the Oscar wins, all were threads in a campaign that built a cinematic monument in the public consciousness, a monument that continues to draw viewers decades later. In the analytics of film history, Gladiator * marketing is a case study in perfect alignment. The right product, the right message, the right moment, and the right audience all orchestrated to turn a colossal gamble into an even more colossal victory, demonstrating that in the marketplace of attention, the most powerful currency is a story that feels both timeless and urgently new. The critical reception of Gladiator * upon its release was a fascinating study in collision between high art expectations and popular spectacle, a tension the film itself embodied. Initial reviews were mixed, not out of disdain, but out of a struggle to categorize the product. Some major critics, accustomed to a different grammar of historical drama, found the dialogue occasionally blunt, the plot archetypal to a fault, and the blend of gritty realism with digital spectacle jarring. They approached it as a literary adaptation and found it wanting. However, a powerful counter-narrative emerged simultaneously from critics who evaluated the film on its own terms as a visceral, mythic, and emotionally charged cinematic experience. They praised its overwhelming scale, its technical mastery, the ferocity of Russell Crowe's performance, and the film's unapologetic commitment to grand emotion. This divide was not a weakness, but a reflection of the film's ambitious scope. It was too big to be easily contained by a single critical lens. As the weeks passed and audience passion became undeniable, the critical consensus began to solidify and warm. The film's undeniable craft, its cinematography, sound design, editing, and score, demanded respect. The conversation shifted from "is this high art" to "this is a monumental achievement in popular filmmaking." This critical journey mirrored Maximus's own path, initially underestimated, then winning over the crowd through sheer force of execution and emotional truth, ultimately achieving a form of glory that transcended its humble, contested beginnings. The award-season trajectory of Gladiator is a masterclass in campaign strategy and industry validation. It entered the race as a formidable contender, but not a guaranteed winner. Its main competition was Steven Soderbergh's Traffic, a gritty, multi-threaded, modern political drama that represented the antithesis of Gladiator as classical, single-minded epic scale. The showdown became a symbol of Hollywood's dual nature, the intimate, actor-driven indie versus the grand, director-driven spectacle. Gladiator's campaign focused on its sheer magnitude of achievement across so many technical and creative categories, positioning it as a celebration of the collaborative, industrial might of Hollywood itself. At the 73rd Academy Awards, the film triumphed, winning 5 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Actor, Russell Crowe, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects. It was also nominated for 7 others, including Best Director and Best Original Score. These wins were not just trophies, they were a massive injection of cultural capital. They legitimized the film in the eyes of history, transforming it from a popular hit into an esteemed classic. The Best Picture win, in particular, signaled the Academy's willingness to crown a muscular, crowd-pleasing epic, a shift that had lasting implications for the types of films considered awards-worthy in the years that followed. The film's legacy forecast, viewed from the vantage of the year 2000, would have been optimistic but likely underestimated its true enduring impact. Analysts would have predicted a strong presence in home video, steady television licensing, and a solid place in the canon of early 21st century blockbusters. The reality has far exceeded that. Gladiator achieved a rare status. It became a perennial. It never left the cultural conversation. Its lines entered the lexicon. Are you not entertained? Its score became iconic. It is regularly broadcast on television, streams constantly on digital platforms, and is taught in film schools as a benchmark for historical epic filmmaking, hybrid digital practical effects, and sound design. It revitalized and redefined its genre, spawning a decade of imitators and setting a technical and tonal standard against which all subsequent historical action films are measured. Its influence is seen in the gritty realism of later battle scenes, from The Lord of the Rings to Game of Thrones star. More than perhaps any film of its era, it demonstrated that a story set in the ancient world could be emotionally immediate, psychologically complex, and commercially dominant on a global scale. The long-term valuation of Gladiator as an asset is extraordinary. As a financial instrument in the DreamWorks and later Paramount library, it has generated continuous, reliable revenue for over 2 decades. Every licensing deal with a streaming service, every television airing, every Blu-ray re-release, and every merchandise agreement adds to its cumulative profit, which now stands as a multiple of its original production and marketing costs. Its value is also measured in brand equity. The title *Gladiator* carries an immediate promise of quality, scale, and emotional intensity. This equity is so potent that it has justified the development of a long-gestating sequel for years, a rare move for a film that told a complete, definitive story. The very fact that a sequel is considered a viable commercial prospect decades later is a testament to the enduring strength of the original film's world and its hold on the audience's imagination. The film also cemented the careers of its key players. Ridley Scott solidified his reputation as a master of large-scale visual storytelling. Russell Crowe became a global A-list star, and Joaquin Phoenix's performance began his trajectory toward becoming one of his generation's most respected actors. Finally, the cultural legacy of *Gladiator* extends beyond cinema into the broader landscape of popular discourse. It provided a durable archetype for discussions of leadership, comparing the servant leader model of Maximus to the narcissistic, populist tyranny of Commodus, a comparison that feels persistently relevant. It offered a visual and narrative shorthand for the concept of honorable sacrifice and moral defiance against corrupt power. The film's portrayal of the crowd as a fickle, powerful political force continues to resonate in analyses of modern politics and media. In an age increasingly defined by digital spectacle, *Gladiator* remains a touchstone for understanding the engineering of mass emotion. It is a film that people don't just remember. They quote it, they reference its scenes, they listen to its music for inspiration. It has achieved that rare alchemy where commercial product, critical acclaim, and popular affection fuse into a permanent cultural object. The forecast is clear. *Gladiator* is not a relic of the year 2000. It is a living text, a film that continues to be discovered by new generations, its power undimmed by time, standing as a colossal monument in the landscape of modern cinema, a testament to what happens when art, technology, and capital align not just for profit, but for the creation of a modern myth that feels eternally true. As the final echoes of the crowd fade and the screen darkens on Maximus walking through the wheat, we are left not with the end of a story, but with the completion of a grand harmonic cycle. *Gladiator* stands as a permanent testament to the possibility of harmony in cinematic creation, the harmony of brutal force and delicate emotion, of silicon-based digital dreams and sweat-soaked physical labor, of ancient philosophical ideals and modern capital market realities. This film was an empire built in the overlapping territories of art and commerce, and its enduring legacy is proof that these territories are not opposed, but interdependent. The art provided the soul, the emotional architecture that gave meaning to the spectacle. The commerce provided the muscle, the vast industrial capacity to render that soul in a form tangible enough for millions to share. What we have dissected over these steps is not a mere movie, but a blueprint for how Hollywood, at its best, operates as a dream factory with a precise profit and loss statement, a temple of myth with a rigorous construction schedule. *Gladiator* succeeded because it respected both sides of this equation equally, investing as much in the authenticity of a grieving man's whisper as in the digital replication of a stone stadium seat. The film's journey from a risky proposition on a studio ledger to a permanent piece of our cultural furniture is a masterclass in aligned intent. Every department, from the historian consultants to the visual effects animators, from the sound recordists in the mud to the marketing executives buying television time, served the same core product, a myth of honor restored. This alignment is rare and fragile. It requires leadership, in this case from Ridley Scott, that possesses both an uncompromising visual vision and a pragmatic understanding of the machine required to realize it. It requires performers like Crowe and Phoenix who invest their roles with a psychological truth that transcends the archetype. It requires investors willing to back a vision that defies contemporary trend analysis. When these elements coalesce, the result is not just a hit, but a monument, a film that defines a genre, elevates its medium, and generates value on every conceivable level, financial, artistic, and emotional. Reflecting on the film's core trinity, art, technology, and capital, we see a perfect case study in mutual reinforcement. The art, the story of Maximus, demanded a specific scale and authenticity, which pushed the technology, digital crowds, bleach bypass cinematography, immersive sound design, to innovate. That advanced technology, in turn, required significant capital, $103 million, to fund its development and deployment. The deployment of that capital, however, was only justified by the potential of the art to connect with a global audience and generate a return. Each element justified and elevated to the other. The technology made the art feel real. The capital made the technology possible. The art made the capital multiply. This virtuous cycle is the engine of landmark cinema. Gladiator shows us that the greatest cinematic spectacles are not those that spend the most money, but those where every dollar spent is invisible, audible, and emotional service of compelling idea. For us, the audience, the final takeaway is an enriched understanding of what we are participating in when we lose ourselves in a film like this. We are not passive consumers. We are the final, essential component in the circuit. Our attention, our emotional surrender, our ticket purchase, our word of mouth. This is a current that brings a machine to life. The Colosseum needs a crowd. By being moved, by being thrilled, by being made to contemplate power and loss, we complete the transaction. We validate the risk. We grant the story its power and, in doing so, participate in a centuries-old tradition of collective myth-making. Gladiator taps into something primordial, the need for heroes, the fear of tyrants, the longing for justice, the ache for home, and presents it with clarity and force that feels both ancient and urgently contemporary. So, as we close this deep dive, we are left with more than memories of battle scenes and quotable lines. We are left with a framework for seeing cinema itself as a profound human technology, one that builds empathy out of light and sound, that forges community out of shared emotion, and that, at its zenith, can make us feel the weight of history and the flight of a spirit in the same fleeting moment. Gladiator endures because it is ultimately about the things we build to outlast us, republics, legends, memories of home, and the stories we tell about what it means to be honorable in a dishonorable world. It reminds us that in the arena of life, the most powerful weapon is not the sword, but the choice of what you fight for, and the most enduring victory is not over an enemy, but for a principle that others will carry forward after you are gone. If you found this deep dive meaningful, my literature-loving friends, consider liking and subscribing so we can keep decoding the business and beauty of cinema together.